Dr. Casper here, and welcome to The Political Scientist. Now, how do you take government? Okay, let's look at Ruto versus Raila. Let's look at Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio. Government control. Who has government control? I would argue Ruto's on the outside. He has limited to any government control to be able to take the state. Raila, on the other hand, for the first time in his political career, I would argue, he has the state regime on his side. And that is due to his relationship with Uhuru Kenyatta, the president. And so this is an opportune time for Raila because he's always on the outside. This time, he can be able to effectively have the state regime and the state machinery behind him. And that will be important for him when it comes to trying to take over the state. Ruto, on the other side, is limited. Let's go to the next thing that's important in taking over the state. Security agencies. Again, Ruto is limited. He can only appeal to the masses. And he'll start appealing to the masses and appealing for good conscience to the security agencies because he doesn't have the military, neither does he have the security forces with him or in his control because he's limited in his scope on government. However, Raila has something. It's called the NMS plus NMC. NMS, Nairobi Metropolitan Services, and the Nairobi Metropolitan Command. Both are military. The NMS is made to look civilian, but it's military. The Nairobi Metropolitan Command is a military command to avert terrorism or attacks on the capital. Okay? Now, why is this important? Because it's important to know who has the security agencies and where those security agencies' allegiance lie if there is an event of insecurity, i.e. protests. And at this point, I'm not sure if the police are the ones who are going to step in or the NMS. Now, why is it important to have post these security agencies? Well, the question comes to appeasement versus destabilization. Here's the two strategies. For Ruto, it is in his best interest to make sure that there are no mass protests, there is no insecurity, there is no ruckus on the streets. Why? Because he does not have control of the security agents, okay? Because it will go against him. Now, you even saw this at the debates. Ruto said, I will accept the will of the Supreme Court. I think recently he talked about security agents going against him, okay? And here's the thing. On the other side, the Azimio team, if they're indeed reading the true analysis in the back rooms, have to plan some type of destabilization, right? Because they must have mass protests or cause some type of insecurity. And I will argue that some may try to deploy or organize groups that are Mungiki-ish, groups that will run around and cause fracas here and there. When that happens, then this will give the excuse to deploy military type or paramilitary type personnel to Nairobi and to different places and therefore capture the state. This is the challenge before Kenya Kwanza. And so, what can Kenya Kwanza honestly do? One of the big things that most politicians don't realize is that I would argue, and this is why I say appeasement, I think Ruto has to realize if the win is indeed in his hands, he has to find a way to appease Raila. Raila is a political king. All right, and I would argue he's the last political king. You know, political kings control regions and they control entire ethnic groups. When you come to the next level, they're princes. You know, these are the children of the significant politicians of the past. They don't control entire regions, they don't control it. They control small factions within regions and small factions within ethnic groups. And then you have the merits. These are people who are followed based on their ability to work, their education, and the rest. Okay, so we have three different types of leaders, and there's really no other leaders like a Raila, right? Because here's the thing: kings don't retire. Kings cannot, or other words, kings cannot be retired. They can only choose to retire, all right? Like Kibaki, all right? So in this case, if Raila has not chosen to retire himself, you're going to have to deal with him. And so you have to put that as a reality. If you do win the election, he is not going anywhere. And so you have to find something worthy to appease the gentleman in order for him to not cause chaos for you. Now, that's for Team Kenya Kwanza. On the other hand, for Team for Azimio, Azimio is going to capture the state in this case. One, discredit the IEBC. Two, go to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court announces the election, cause chaos on the street, delay the elections inevitably, have the state take over until further notice, which will lead to a handshake. On the event that the Supreme Court votes against Azimio, then the next step for Azimio is to cause chaos on the street and lead to a third handshake. Either way, the goal is the third handshake, or if they're able to effectively capture the state, then just kick Ruto out and that will be the end of it. Now, that's my theoretical analysis about what is going to happen in the post-election of Kenya. This is my analysis. You're free to follow it, you're free to analyze it. But what I will say is this to the Kenyans. Misitu ni zile, wanasemanga, nyani ni wale wale, misitu ndio tofauti. Pielo Lumumba says that. And there's another one that they say, when ndovu mbili zikipigana nyasi ndo hulia. In other words, when you have these two giants are going to fight, these two sides are going to fight, but at the end of the day, it is you who's going to get hurt. Whether you love the analysis or you don't, you have to consider the costs of conflict, the cost of following these politicians. And maybe we need to start asking ourselves, what is in the best interest of the Kenyan person? This has been a few minutes with the political scientist. This is Dr. Casper. Until my next analysis, follow, subscribe, and like. Bye-bye.